I know. I said to my sister when she messaged me, I was like, I want to watch the football, not.
Does that mean if we go into lockdown and we're losing 3-0 at half time, we can
Yeah, let's do that. We need to get out of the country. We can't be stuck in Wales. Sorry, guys. Just are you stood there?
We're live. Should we be talking?
Oh, right. Okay.
Good afternoon, Rovers fans. It's wet, it's miserable, but it is match day and it is Halloween. So hopefully Rovers will give us more of a treat than a trick, but who knows? Let's see what performance we get today. We're going for a slightly later start today. There are little rumours already on Twitter about the potential Rovers team news. So we're not doing our predicted lineups today. We are going to react live to what drops in about 5 minutes' time. I'm joined once again by Rovers Analytics. How are you, Joe?
Yes, not so bad. Gone for the name change today. Big step. So, yeah.
Jacob, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good stuff. And Alex, how are you?
I'm feeling better than I did on Tuesday, but I'm still a bit sore about the last game. But hopefully we can put it right today.
Absolutely. And Rovers fans, please do, of course, hit us with those comments throughout. I am sure from 2 p.m. there will be plenty of comments given some of the rumours that have already surfaced. So please do interact with us and please do share your comments with us. We are, of course, sponsored by 6yardsout.com.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.
It was a losing start for the mug. It's home colours today, but we're probably going to be playing in away colours. So hopefully I can sip a tea in a winning mug. Of course, please do check out 6yardsout.com if you haven't. And if you're not following us on Twitter, Rovers_chat on Twitter. And please, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rovers Chat. So before that team news lands in a couple of minutes, I just want to ask the three of you, is there anyone you're looking to see involved today? Alex, I'll start with you if I can. Anyone you were thinking you wanted to see in the team today?
I think I've been asked this question a few times before the pre-match lives we've done so far, and I think in every single one of them I've said that I'd have Nyambe in the team at right back over Costello, and I still hold that opinion. I think Tuesday night probably only strengthened that in my view, that it was probably the right call to have Nyambe at right back. And I think by some of the rumours that we might talk about in a minute, that will be a done deal, I think. What can I say? We just conceded 4 goals at home. He offers that extra defensive stability that we need, that one-on-one defensive ability. And I just think we really need to go back to basics after Tuesday night. You know, we can talk long and hard about conceding 4 at home. In my opinion, it's embarrassing. So we need to maybe focus on what really matters to this team, which is keeping it solid at the back and looking to score more goals than the opposition going forward. But, you know, after Tuesday, we really need to tighten up.
Absolutely. And sticking with the defensive theme, Jacob, I think defensively there's someone you're looking to see today, isn't there?
Yeah, I mentioned in the last stream about giving Scott Wharton a chance. Lenihan's been really poor this season. He's been exposed quite a few times, and it almost seems like he's going through the motions in some games. I mean, Ayala's out, else I would have put him in over Wharton, but I think it's going to be a poor message to Wharton if Ayala's out and Lenihan was as poor as he was, costing us for at least 1 or 2 goals on Tuesday, and he doesn't get a chance. I mean, he's been promoted with 2 League Two sides, and we've finally not sent him out on loan this season, and I think he deserves a chance.
Sure. And Joe, before we do show that team news in a moment, who were you looking to see involved today?
Yeah, I kind of thought there might be a merit for Sturgiakis to get a chance, as Pez has got his own chance. Potentially to give them both a run out, but I can understand him not playing. He's a little bit younger and probably a lot less experienced at this level, so I can understand that Sturgiakis isn't playing. But it would have been nice to potentially see him or maybe see him in some 23s games soon. Give him a few more run outs. It'd be nice to get a nice home action shot of him.
Absolutely. And certainly in our comments, Engine agreed with you, Joe, on that one. Sturgiakis, please. So certainly some agreement there from Engine. So the team news, we are now running across the bottom. Pears, Nyambi, Lenihan, Williams, Rankin Costello, Corey Evans, Tom Tribal, Lewis Holtby, Ben Brereton, Adam Armstrong, and Harvey Elliott. So I know that in the comments you were asking what rumours. Certainly one of the rumours we picked up on was Barry Douglas, who is potentially self-isolating for COVID-19 at the moment. So that sees Joe Rankin Costello at left back and Ryan Nyambi restored to right back. And it looks to be the same side that started against Reading. So Alex, initial reaction to that news?
I'm quite disappointed about Douglas. Obviously, I only heard the rumours of the last half an hour or so over social media, but nonetheless, it's unsurprising. I think the biggest concern for me, obviously, is Rankin Costello, who didn't, in my opinion, have a great game on Tuesday, is then playing out of position today as well, in my opinion, away from home rather than at home against a team that's as strong as what Reading were, if not stronger. So that's looking at the team, that's my initial reaction, is I'm quite concerned about the left back position, particularly as I don't think he did that well post lockdown when he played there, when we sort of had a mini injury crisis in that position, and we had players in, players out, shake it all about kind of thing. So that's my big concern. I think it's good that the front three stayed the same. I'm surprised it has in a way, because I think they've played several successive games now on multiple midweeks. So I wonder how long that can stay the same. And then also Evans and Tribal together in the midfield. Yeah, you look at the options on the bench. Would you pick anybody different? Probably not, with the lack of experience on there and maybe the lack of physicality. So I can see why he's gone for the team he has, but obviously the abiding concern is the left back role for me. That's the... I look at every other position on the team and I can see the logic in his choices, really.
Sure. And Joe, you were a big defender of Joe Rankin Costello on Tuesday night at right back. Certainly I was in agreement with you, actually. I don't think it was all Joe Rankin Costello's fault on Tuesday night. I think just as a four, the back four were pretty poor, actually. How are you feeling about Rankin Costello at left back, however?
Yeah, difficult one. I don't think it's a position that anybody wants to see a right footer playing on the wrong side. It doesn't work. In England, the great example at the minute with Trippier playing there, and it's just not ideal. Obviously, Bell and Douglas out. The frustrating point for me, and Andy Watson's picked up on it there. Everybody who follows me knows I'm a huge fan of Lewis Thompson. And I find it baffling and frustrating and annoying that over the past 9 months that we've been sat here isolating and playing behind closed doors football and having players out injured and playing all these games, that Lewis Thompson has not received a single minute of Championship football. He's a decent left back at youth level. You know, we've seen players like Lewis Travis come through, and John Buckley, and even Luke Brennan from the under-18s is given game time, and Jack Vale. But for some reason, Lewis Thompson just can't get a look in. He's a youth international for his national side at the under-21s level. Scored his debut. He can get forward. He can cross a ball, and he's left-footed. So yeah, I'm a bit baffled as to why they won't give him a go. Mowbray clearly isn't a fan because he's been at the club a good while now. Signed from Manchester United. You know, this guy's got pedigree, just like Rankin Costello came from the same academy. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. He's somebody who needs to become more involved, in my opinion.
Sure, and certainly Andy Watson. I hope that that Joe answered your question there. You know, the thoughts on Lewis Thompson and not getting a chance at left back. And we've got a comment here from Leap Year Man. Swansea will target JRC at left back surely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be a given, particularly with that right footer who's going to be checking in all of the time. Someone going down his left hand side is going to be very unnatural. So I think that's one that certainly worries me. Jacob, I'm going to come to you on the midfield if I can. Certainly Tuesday night, you were quite critical of Corey Evans in the midfield role. Got quite a few comments here about Corey Evans. So Andy, again, people going to be delighted that Evans continues in the midfield. Look forward to Jacob's comments. So we will come to that in a moment. Elijah Shaw maybe could have gave Davenport a chance in the middle instead of Passenger Evans. Leap Year Man, Evans, sad face. The balance of the midfield was not right Tuesday, but what other options do we have? So certainly comments seem to be backing up your opinions from Tuesday, Jacob. How are you feeling about the same midfield three there?
I think it's criminal to start that same midfield three again after how flat we was in that game. I mean, every single goal came down the right-hand side, and I don't think that's any coincidence. Ben Brereton was very quiet, and I don't think that's a coincidence that he had Corey Evans behind him, who 50-50 will pass sideways or backwards, and then when he is passing forwards, half the time it reaches its man, the other half of the time it gets intercepted because he's just not a creative player. I think the comment on not having any other options, I don't think that's true. I think John Buckley would fit in that midfield better. I think that gives it more of a balance, as he isn't a defensive midfielder. And as we saw in the last game, Evans just doesn't work there. He just looked lost. And like it's been said, was a passenger. I mean, also, what mentioned before we started the stream, maybe just give Jacob Davenport a chance. I would much rather have Jacob Davenport, who is more defensive like Corey Evans, but I'd rather see him given a chance than trying the same thing again and expecting a different outcome, because that's the definition of insanity.
Sure. I think for me, without Joe Rothwell in this side, it was quite noticeable. The Coventry game, Lewis Holtby was getting forward quite a lot, and he obviously missed those chances. And Joe, you had the stats up about, I think it was 7 shots, didn't he, Holtby had in that game. But we had Bradley Johnson in that side. Without Bradley Johnson in the side, and when you're bringing in Corey Evans, it seems that Holtby's not having that license to go forward or not doing it for whatever reason. So I think where I'm at with this midfield, I think it's more the three together aren't quite functioning together, and there isn't that runner forward. And I think we're going to miss that Joe Rothwell element today, most certainly. Yeah. Just picking up some of the comments, Gary H needs to play Evans as the deepest midfielder today. And again, you know, that's just another case in point, I think. Because I think Holtby, for whatever reasons, wanting to come deeper when he's in those three. And then Tom Tribal is certainly that wants to be deep as well. And it's just leaving that big space and that area that Joe Rothwell would go forward. Alex, is Joe Rothwell going to be a continued big miss for us today, do you think?
We've heard this a lot about Joe Rothwell. Certainly, based on his form early season, he's a massive miss to this team. That three of Johnson, Holtby and Rothwell, that combination, that works. That's what bridges the midfield and the attack together and provides protection to the defence. Whenever we've deviated away from that, it's the balance just hasn't looked right whatsoever. I think we've probably played if we have played Evans, we've played him in the wrong position, like one of the previous comments just said. We've played him too far up the pitch. We need to play him as the deepest midfielder. The thing with Rothwell that I always go back to is he's possibly the most inconsistent player in our squad over his time at the club. You know, he's played some magnificent games where I think he's probably been one of the best players on the pitch, and then other weeks he's completely anonymous. I can only go off his most recent form, which prior to the whole COVID isolation situation that he was in, and then he's sore back, which I won't joke about. He probably was one of our best players this season. So yeah, I think you can give a good account for why he is a miss to this midfield. But I go back to what I just previously said. You know, if we are hanging our hat on Joe Rothwell to thread this whole team together for the 46-game season and be the catalyst for us to get in the top 6, then I think we'll probably be disappointed, because historically he's shown to not perform at that top level week in, week out. And I think that, for me, is the concern with this formation, is although Rothwell works really well in it when he's on top form, I think we're relying on him to thread the whole thing together to make it a well-oiled machine, if that's the right term. And I think without Rothwell, we're seeing that the midfield just isn't functioning, neither in protection of the defence as much as it should, or linking to the forwards. And I think we're suffering from that. But obviously, can the manager complain that he doesn't have a fully fit squad for every game? I don't think there's a manager in this country that has a fully fit squad every week.
And Joe, just picking up on some of the other comments in the chat, could John Buckley be someone that fills that midfielder breaking forward to support the 3 in attack? Or is it really, at this moment in time, with this formation, it is Joe Rothwell that has to perform that role?
No, I think there's a really easy solution for me. You look at the team and you say, who's the closest player to Joe Rothwell? And that's Harvey Elliott. I would much rather see Harvey Elliott come central and be the driver in midfield. Stick your live wire Tyrese Dolan, who's done nothing wrong, let's remember, back out on the right. You've got some creativity with his passing range. You've got some speed and dribbling ability on the ball. I see John Buckley as Lewis Holtby's understudy, a much more nifty and less mobile, creative player that is looking to get in between the lines and play nice passes in between defences. So yeah, for me, a solution for when Rothwell's out long term is to try and get Elliott into those central positions. But there's context of maybe there's something in the loan agreement that he needs to play in their preferred position for him and things like that. But if not, fine, play Dolan there. He played there for years and years at academy level at City and Preston. He was only a winger a year ago. So, you know, he's played in that position before, albeit not in a 4-3-3 formation. But yeah, for me, the solution is to bring one of those live wires into the central areas and put one of them out wide. And if one of them's out, then yeah, you kind of stuck. I think it's a bit unfair to say we're resting everything on Rothwell, because, you know, you've got Bradley Dack, we have got more central midfielders probably than any team in the division, I would imagine. Or if we've not, we'll be up there. So, yeah, I mean, right now it's a static midfield, I agree. I think there's probably that one solution with Elliott that could fix that problem that's maybe not being utilised. But other than that, you know, is there anything that he can really do? You know, if Johnson's out, I understand Davenport. Corey Evans is an international footballer. He's played in the Championship for nearly a decade. He's been at the club a long time. Yeah, he doesn't suit this formation particularly well, but Jacob Davenport is a complete unknown and would be a huge risk in an already very young side with a youth fullback in Rankin Costello, a still very young player in Ryan Nyambe, a young goalkeeper in Pears, you know, young front three. Brereton, Armstrong, Elliott must be one of the youngest front threes in the league. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it anyway.
No, thanks, Joe. And before we move on, Rovers fans, with what Joe's just presented there as an alternative option, Harvey Elliott making up that midfield three, at least until Bradley Dack's back, and then or Tyrese Dolan in that position. What do you all think? Please do hit us with the comments. I think that's a really interesting perspective, Joe. Before we move on, we're just going to, I think the graphics playing up certainly at my end just to get the team news with the substitutes. I don't know if everyone's seeing what I'm seeing, but I can't see the graphic as it's meant to be.
I can see it, mate.
You can see it. Who are the substitutes? It's just not showing on my screen properly.
So we've got Sturgiakis, Chapman, Gallagher, Davenport, Wharton, Buckley and Dolan. So even though McGlaw and Grayson have travelled, it doesn't look like they've made the bench.
Okay. So I think what we'll do is move on. We have, as we've said before on these pre-match streams, we really do like to present some of the Rovers analytics stuff that, Joe, you've been up to. And we've got a really interesting graph to show now, haven't we, about how Rovers compare to other teams in this division. Could you just talk us through what this one shows us?
Yeah, so what we've done is the two teams directly above us, two teams directly below, which is Brentford, Cardiff, Preston and Stoke at the minute. It's just a comparison and all about shots and goals so far this year. So all the yellow bars are shots in this season. Red is shots on target percentage, so how many of those shots were on target. Light blue is shots on target per 90. And then pink is the actual goals scored. So despite the fact that two of these teams are above us and two are right there with us, attacking-wise, we are first in every category against these four sides. And maybe besides Stoke, I think there's quite a lot of Blackburn fans that will tell you that Preston, Cardiff and Brentford are better than us. And I disagree. I think we've got defensive frailties, as is kind of written out in the description there. But if they're addressed, attacking-wise, I mean, when you've got a striker that's in that kind of form and wingers that can do what they're doing, you know, I mean, those stats speak for themselves, really. I think moving forward, we're really positive.
Great. Thanks for that summary, Joe. So, Jacob, I just want to come to you first. From an attacking sense, what's standing out to you on that graph and some of the clubs that are on that graph that Joe's presented?
I'd definitely say the shots, just in general. I mean, if you're looking at Brentford, who were by far probably the most threatening team attacking-wise last season, and I know they've lost Ben Rama and Ollie Watkins, but they've replaced them quite well. And to see that we're near enough doubling their shots so far, I think that's a big credit to us. And you have to think, obviously, we've played quite a lot of hard teams already. We've played Reading, Watford, Bournemouth, and to say we're doubling Brentford's shots, quite impressive, I would say. I think the one thing we need to start getting right is obviously the defensive side, but also being more clinical. I mean, I think the Watford game was the big one where we had 20 shots, I think, in that game, and you know we ended up losing it, even though we had all the ball as well. And you can put some of it down to the keeper being in great form that game for Watford, but I think we do need to start being a bit more ruthless in front of goal, and that's even with 4-0, 4-0, 5-0. It's the bigger teams where we're just not seem to be taking our chances against.
Sure. And Alex, is there anything standing out for you on this graph? Perhaps anything a bit different to what Jacob's just pulled out?
Yeah, I think I'll just add to what he basically said. I think, and I also, looking at the league table last night, I think the thing that struck me the most was we are the top scorers in the division. I'm pretty sure we are, and I think we're top scorers by some distance. But yet we only find ourselves mid-table at the minute. I think a lot of ex-pros say that, you know, if you ordered every team in the division at the end of the season in terms of numbers of goals scored, then that can be quite close to where the final table ends up being. So I think the thing that this really emphasizes to me is when we don't have any issues going forward, this isn't really the problem for Rovers at the minute. The main issues are at the other end of the pitch. And if we can carry on producing these sorts of figures over the course of the whole season and we manage to shore up that defensive side of the game, then I'm we have to be in and around it. That's the only statistical conclusion you can draw. I mean, if we are near the top scorers in this league and we manage to not be like the fourth most conceded goals in the league, then we have to be in and around it just by pure chance. So, yeah, I think I'm really impressed with those stats. I think I don't think they're surprising. I think we all know that going forward, we've been incredibly impressive this season. You know, I can't remember a season when we've scored, 2 4s and a 5 this early on, or in any season, actually. So, yeah, that's really impressive. But obviously, yeah, there's two sides to football. There's the offensive and defensive side of the game. So I think we all know the area in which we've got to improve going forward.
And Joe, just before we move on to the defensive side, if I'm reading this graph correctly, actually something that's standing out to me is the difference between the yellow and red bars. Actually, if you look at the other clubs, the number of shots and the percentage of those on target, we've got quite a big gap actually between our yellow and red bars compared to the other clubs. Am I reading that correctly? Is that a fair assumption to make?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fair assessment to make. It's the one negative that comes out of this. For us compared to those 4 sides. I think there's 2 things to factor in, of course, and one of which is the more shots that you have, the higher the chances that you're going to have less shots on target, because that's just the way that data works. But the second side to that coin, of course, is that we are potentially playing teams that are forcing us to shoot from range. So, you think back to certain games. We played Bournemouth, Watford, Reading, Forest, Cardiff, and in those games we're playing packed defences. So we're being forced to shoot from areas that perhaps aren't favourable, or perhaps aren't areas that we would shoot from, given an option to, go from wherever, against teams like Wycombe, where you're getting chances right in front of the goal and they're tap-ins, or at least somewhat tap-ins. I might not score them, but Adam Armstrong certainly can in his sleep. So I think that's a testament to the defensive structures of sides like Cardiff and Reading and Forest and the way they set themselves up against us. If you think about Adam Armstrong's goal against Reading, the first one, the XG on that, the expected goals, I mean, that will have been really slim. It's on the half volley. There's 3 Reading men in the box and he runs in at the last minute and the cross isn't even brilliant. It's one of those half chances that brilliant strikers put away. I think we've got to bear in mind the types of teams we've played. Swansea, they're not like that. So, this is a game where hopefully we will have a decent shots on target percentage. I mean, if we come out of the game and we've had 6 shots today, 5 of which tested the goalkeeper, I'll be really happy. If we have 15 and 3 test the goalkeeper, I won't be delighted.
Thanks, Joe. And if we just move on to the defensive side then, this graph is, of course, just focusing on the offensive. Could you just tell us a little bit, Joe, about defensively how we're comparing to those sides that you've brought up there?
Yeah, so it doesn't make for as good a reading, of course. Preston have got problems. Obviously, we know going forward. I think they're still yet to score a goal at home this season. Yippee, thank God. We're ahead of them at this stage for what feels like the first time in a long time. But yeah, I think what Preston do have that potentially we don't is a very solid, consistent back 4. I mean, Bauer and Davis and I forgot, is it Rafty, the guy that's playing right back at the minute for them? They've just got a consistent defence, and I think pretty much all the sides on there would feel aggrieved if I didn't say that they all had pretty strong defences. I mean, that's obvious though. If you see our attacking stats, you'd say, well, why are we not miles ahead of them? Well, we must have defensive stats that are basically the same the other way. Brentford are much better defensively than us, as a Cardiff, probably Preston, and probably Stoke. So, yeah, that's the flip side, isn't it? You'd probably reverse that round, and that's why we're all so near to each other.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. I'm going to move us on then. But Rovers fans, if you've got any comments about the graphs that Joe's brought up there, please do continue to put them in. And of course, give Joe a follow, Rovers Analytics. There's plenty of that stuff available if you want to see that. Jacob, I'm going to switch tact and move on to you. Rovers away from home, despite the fact we've had 2 defeats, actually in those 2 defeats away from home, scored 2 goals. 1 goal in the Watford game, 2 in the Bournemouth game. We've looked pretty impressive away from home. Can we hurt Swansea today with how we function away from home?
Most definitely. I mean, from the interview you had last night with the Swansea fan, he was saying their weaknesses, the counter-attack, and I think that suits us down to a T. I think if we can get counter-attacking chances today, we will put them away, because that's where we've looked threatening this season, with the pace of Armstrong, having Brereton and Elliott on the wing to put balls into him. That's how we're going to hurt Swansea today. I mean, also, I doubt they're going to set up, being at home, and as Bin's mentioned, they play a nice style of football. I doubt they're going to set up in a defensive formation against us. They're going to bring the game to us, and I think that's going to suit us as well. Us not having to break a team down like we've had to do at pretty much every home game we've played. And I think that's why we're having the joy away from home this season, despite not winning against Watford and not beating Bournemouth. We were arguably the better sides in both of those games. We just didn't take our chances, and I would say Watford did set up defensively against us, but I can't see Swansea doing that today. So if we're gonna beat a big team, it's going to be today, I think.
Sure. And Alex, if we consider some of the personnel who are available today and those who aren't, that counter-attacking style that Jacob's referenced there, who do you expect to be the flag bearers in that sense? Who's going to be driving us forward on the counter-attack today?
Well, I think there's the obvious ones come to mind. It's obviously the front 3. I think they've all got that kind of pace, that trickery that you need to unlock a defence. I think Armstrong is obviously, to me, one of the quickest players in the squad. He must be. And he often provides that ability to stretch a defence away from home, get them into positions they don't like to be in. That's how you force goals. And I think that's what we did away at Derby really well. I think we probably only had, 35% of the ball that day, and we come out 4-0 winners. So it really isn't all about, how many passes you play, how much passing you have in your own half. It's about doing the damage in the other half of the pitch. And we did that really well at Derby. It all depends on how Swansea set up. Obviously, they're well known as being, very they pass the ball around quite a lot. Whether they pass the ball around the back quite a lot, I'm not too aware of. But if they do, and we employ that kind of high press that we have all season, then I think that will be pretty effective today. Obviously, it's whether they can get at our defence as well. So I think it's going to definitely be an interesting game. The front 3 are going to have to be on top form today, because I can see us conceding a couple of goals with the way we're setting up the team, with the way we're basically placing the players on the pitch. But if we carry on in the same vein we have away from home of scoring 2, 3s and 4s, we'll certainly give ourselves a big chance. But that front 3 is going to have to be on top form today.
Yeah. And just picking up a comment here from Stephen Mason, I hope Rovers use the high press. Joe, we've spoken about on these streams about a couple of things. Last week, the press that we did on Coventry was at times sensational, albeit with 10 men, but that was quite noticeable last week. And then we've also reflected on those games and some of the stats that you provided, that when we do have lower percentage possession, we do tend to fare better. Coming up against a side like Swansea today, are Swansea going to see more of the ball than we've been used to seeing teams have in recent weeks? And do you expect the press to figure today, even with this being the 4th game in however many days it's been?
Yeah, I think so. And I think sometimes people confuse operating a high press with having to run hard. It's not really like that. I mean, if you picture a goal kick, for example, for the opposition team, a high press is just where you set your stall out. So often when people think of a high press, it's that kind of chasing after the goalkeeper, and the sub gets a big round of applause for coming on and injecting some passion. And Yes, that is an operation of a press, but a high press is more about where you're setting your stall out. So how deep is our defensive line and how far apart is our attacking trio from the midfield trio? And I think how much ball Swansea get is going to be up to us, which is a testament to how well we are in possession. How good we are in possession. But it is our decision, and it's just whether we make the right decisions. Against Coventry, for example, we struggled to score for quite a while at 1-0 up. We really struggled to break them down. And between the 60th and 75th minute, Coventry went from 30% possession to 52% possession in their favour. And in that period, we scored 3 goals. And if that doesn't tell you that we are better against teams that have the ball, that we can chase down in packs, then nothing will.
Yeah. And Jacob, just tactically, Swansea are a side that like to play with wing backs and 3 centre backs, and we're obviously going to go 4-3-3. Can we hurt Swansea with our 3 up top, and particularly the 2 coming in from wide, Elliott and Brereton? Is there going to be any pockets to exploit today?
Most definitely. I mean, if they have the same problems we've had with our fullbacks pushing too high at times, we can definitely catch them on the counter attack and expose that. I mean, a 3 against a 3, that'd be interesting to see. Definitely with, I mean, Elliott, Brereton, or Armstrong running at you. It's a scary front 3 to be against. And like Joe's mentioned, if they have all the ball, their fullbacks are going to be pushing up high and trying to obviously snatch a goal, get crosses in. And that's going to be up to us to defend them and then get them on the counter-attack. And like I said, if we're going to beat a big team, it's going to have to be today, because everything we excel at is what they are weak at with the counter-attack. Them having the ball, that suits us down to a T. So we need to give it a real go today. Yeah.
And Alex, just looking at the Swansea perspective, is there anyone that you're fearing today in the Swansea lineup?
I've not actually read the whole 11 for Swansea, so I'd be interested to see that. But I think that after Tuesday night, I would have to say that the whole front end of the pitch for them makes me worried. It all depends on how we set this. It all boils down to how we set the team up today. You know, if we set our stall out to push those fullbacks really high again, and we lose the ball in the midfield, then we're in big trouble. The one thing I would say is that the way we're playing at the minute under Mowbray, it requires us to be brilliant on the ball. You know, if we start playing those loose passes in the midfield, they just ping the ball out wide, and you know it's effectively 3 against 2 then, isn't it? So it's and we left ourselves in that situation a couple of times on Tuesday. So we really need to guard against that. They've got threats all over the front of the pitch. I mean, where do I even start? I could list probably 5 or 6 players that, you know, have consistently in this league. But we just need to. We've talked about this before as well, haven't we? That let the opposition worry about us. We do have to guard against that away from home slightly. We can't just be so cavalier that we ship loads of goals at the other end. So there's got to be a bit of a balance there to that. There's got to be a big balance there. I think if we set out our stall in the right way and we exploit their weaknesses, which I think we can do, because ultimately we're not playing Bayern Munich, who've relocated to South Wales. So we're playing Swansea today. So they're in the Championship for a reason with us. So they have their weaknesses too. So to us to exploit them.
Yeah. Joe, I've just looked at the Swansea lineup, and there's a big one actually who's not playing, Matt Grimes. He's on the bench. Is that pointing to Swansea maybe going to allow us to have the ball a little bit? Because when I think of Matt Grimes for Swansea, I think of him being that little metronome in the middle, receiving the ball, keeping the ball, popping it about. Do you read anything into Matt Grimes on the bench and their potential tactical approach there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who his replacement is, but it wouldn't shock me if it's a more physical player. I'd say Grimes, if you describe him or compare him to one of our players, he's the Holtby. very creative, a completely different player to anybody who remembers him playing for us those years ago. Because let's be real, he was rubbish. But he's come on leaps and bounds. Another one who always reminds me of him is Jack Byrne, who we had as well around a similar time, who's now doing really well wherever he is as well. But yeah, these players come on, don't they, in different ways. But yeah, he's a creative player, like you say, a one-twoer, linking up play. So it wouldn't shock me if they've gone a little bit more physical and potentially a little bit more defensive in the midfield area to stop that quick counter. I mean, if you think about where we're at the best on the counter, the Wickham game, Brereton getting the ball deep inside our own half and driving right down the middle of the pitch, that's where you need a nice defensive midfielder, a Bradley Johnson or whatever. Obviously, we're not going to give Bradley Johnson to them and he can't play. So, but yeah, that's probably an indication, which does worry me, because I think that's what I'd do if I'm the Swansea manager. I think to myself, yeah, we need to combat that counter attack. We need to be strong in transition and wait patiently to hit on the counter. That's what I'd be doing to beat Rovers today.
Yeah. Before we move into our predictions and closing the video, I'm just going to come back into some of the comments that we've had. So we had one from Spiritual Games probably about 15 minutes ago. Why is Williams not playing left back? Which is actually a really interesting one if we do consider we have got Scott Wharton, for example, that could play centre back, and Williams would probably be more of a square peg in a square hole. Jacob, is Derek Williams someone you'd be having at left back instead?
No, not really. Every single time Derek Williams has played left back, I can't even remember the last time he played left back. It's been that long. I would have to say it would be the season we got promoted, or the season after that, the first season back in the Championship. He just doesn't have the turn of pace. And there's one game in particular away at Wigan when he got beat by his man so easily. We ended up losing that game 3-1, and it was just embarrassing to watch. He just isn't fast enough to be playing left back. And you know what? I would much rather have Scott Wharton at left back. I do believe he is left-footed, and I would rather see him at left back than Williams, to be honest. Williams has been twice the player at centre back than he has been at left back. He's never been a left back. We bought him as a centre back, and we just put him there because literally had no other option under Owen Coyle. So no, he doesn't have the pace. He can't really attack that well either. I would honestly rather see Amari Bell there, and that's saying something.
And then just picking up on your suggestion, Joe, about Harvey Elliott moving central, agreement from Leap Year Man. I like Joe's suggestion on Elliott moving central. He did it towards the end of the game on Tuesday, so that one gets a thumbs up, Joe. And then we've got a comment from Josh Hill. What do you think Blackburn's defence will need to do to avoid sloppy defensive mistakes today? Alex, I know you were quite scathing of the defensive performance on Tuesday. Is it just back to basics? Let's not do things like chest the ball into the central midfield area. Let's try and avoid balls hitting the back of our heels 9 seconds into a game of football. Is it just back to basics for Rovers?
There's definitely got to be that element of being aware that we need to be concentrating in defence, because as you just mentioned, the 2 of those goals are due to a lack of concentration for me. That's not due to team shape or even team approach or principles of play. That's just down to, in my opinion, lack of concentration. You cannot concede a goal 15 seconds into a game and come to any other conclusion than it was a lack of concentration. So there definitely needs to be that just extra awareness today, particularly bearing in mind on Tuesday night. They need to have that in their minds. They don't need to fear what happened on Tuesday. They need to know that they just need to concentrate and not make any individual errors, because in the Championship, you don't get away with things you did in League One. I recall the League One season where we might have made 2 or 3 individual errors in a game, but the opposition didn't have the ability to punish us for it. Moving up into the Championship, if you make an individual mistake, you can find yourself trailing in a game that you've dominated, as we've seen this season. So it's really important that we stay on top of those individual errors. I think, talking about the defence as a whole, I do believe that the way we are setting up at the minute does leave us susceptible if we make mistakes in the midfield. For example, we miss a tackle like Costello did on Tuesday night. It just leaves us incredibly vulnerable at the back for any quick thinking from the opposition. So, things to take into today's game. Make sure you don't make an individual error for number one and throw the whole game out of the window. And number two, we need to be on the ball in midfield, not to give the ball away and allow quick, cheap passes at our back line. Because I think they have the ability to capitalise on that if we keep doing that today.
Sure. And before we move into the predictions, just one more comment that we've had here. Well, it's two comments from RD and Joe. I'm going to ask you this one. Will Harvey Elliott's arrival hinder Dolan's progression? And then Dolan has seemed lost on the pitch since Elliott has broken into the team. Given the agreement that we have with Liverpool, and you've referenced it, where I suspect that minutes feature heavily within that loan agreement, has Dolan just got to accept the fact now that he is playing understudy to Ben Brereton and Harvey Elliott?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's not like he's going to complain. He came here to try and get into the under-23s team.
Yeah.
He's playing under-18s football last year for a Preston team that have got a poor youth development system. Tyrese Dolan, everybody associated with him, everybody that knows him, everyone that's related to him will just be delighted that he's got a squad number and there's kids buying a shirt with Dolan on the back. He will not be sat there upset with his game time. I think he's probably got 5,000% more game time than he ever thought he would this year. I don't think it'll hinder his progression. Game time's not the only factor in progression as a young player. All young players develop differently. And Lewis Travis was released from the academy he was at as a youngster, came here, progressed as a right back, and then he's needed in the first team as a midfielder. And all of a sudden, he's one of the most promising young talents we've produced in a decade as a central midfielder. And Eric Kinder said with that podcast with Andy, saying, I never expected him to be there. Let's not be surprised if in 5 years' time, Tyrese Dolan's a striker in the Championship, scoring 10 goals a season for somebody. Who knows? At that age, they're so unpredictable. I don't think it'll hinder him, no, but impossible to say.
Yeah. And I think the point you just made there about him potentially being a striker, you've seen it with players. Well, 20 years ago, it was Thierry Henry converted into a striker, Ollie Watkins more recently at Brentford and whatever. So that does happen. And Adam Armstrong,
of course, closer to home.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Rovers fans watching, we're going to close the stream in a few minutes' time, but please do hit us with your predictions for the match in the comments, and we will pick them up in a moment. But I am going to ask Jacob, Alex, and Joe for their predictions for this game, and I will give my own as well. So, Jacob, I'm going to start with you. What are you feeling? What's your prediction?
I've went for a positive 3-2 win. I've went with Armstrong for 2 goals and Elliott with another, and Andre Ayew and Casey Palmer for them. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up being a draw or a loss, to be honest with you.
So 3-2 Rovers from Jacob. Alex?
I'm terrible. I'm notoriously terrible at all predictions related to Rovers. I'm still last in the Predictor League. Still last. I'll qualify that with what I'm about to say. I still do feel quite concerned from Tuesday. I think we'll probably concede 2 or 3 goals today, and I'm not sure we'll score 3 or 4. So it pains me to say this. I hate predicting Rovers to lose, but I'll predict a 2-1 defeat, unfortunately.
Okay. It's a 2-1 defeat for Rovers from Alex. Joe, what's your prediction?
I've gone 3-3 this week. And again, I'll prefix it. Second in the predictions table. So, But I said 1-1 on Tuesday and I was far off. So, yeah, I've gone 3-3 and I can feel a Breo goal coming today. I really think he'll score one. So, yeah, 3-3.
Excellent. And my prediction is 2-2. I've also I'm feeling a Brereton goal as well actually today, so we'll see what happens there. But I think there's going to be goals in this. I'm just our record at the Liberty Stadium, I think we've had 3 games and we've not won a game there. And I think Swansea are stiff opposition at the Liberty Stadium. So I'm not feeling as positive to predict that win, but certainly a high scoring draw is where I'm at. So just to pick up everyone's comments here then, I think the first was actually from Hunter's Army about 10 minutes ago. Mon the Rovers, got a good feeling about today for some reason, still sticking with my Sussel 2-2 draw. Elliot and Brereton. We have got Kieran Kiffin 2-2. Ben Smith, I'm going to be positive and say 2-1 Rovers. Leap Year Man would love a bounce back win, but think 2-2. Ronan Hart, 1-0 Rovers. Dizzy Thumbs, 1-1. And Michael Pearson, Rovers 2-1 would take a point though. So I think a lot of the fan base is in a fairly similar position. High scoring draw or Rovers potentially nicking it is where a lot of people seem to be, apart from you, Alex. So you are an outlier. I hope that you are not smiling with your prediction after the game.
I won't be if I'm right, trust me. I don't want to be right.
So where are you going wrong?
So we will draw it to a close. It is 2:15 now, so please all do and get your cup of tea, your beer, whatever your tipple is to watch the game. And I've once again done a faux pas because I've not ordered iFollow, so I'll be doing that in the next 15 minutes as well. Please, of course, do follow us on Twitter, Rovers_chat on Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rovers Chat, to stay up to date with everything Rovers Chat, everything from Rovers Analytics, the Stat Show, the 1875 podcast, and on the other side, as well as everything else that we're pushing out on the live streams. Please subscribe to stay up to date with all of that content. And of course, please check out 6shardsout.com, who are going to have a victory mug today. I'm confident, even though I've said a 2-2 draw, I'm just going to will it into that mug. But Joe, thank you for joining us again.
No problem at all.
Jacob, thank you.
No worries. Look forward to a positive review, hopefully.
And Alex, thank you as well.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
No worries. And we will be back, of course, with the post-match stream, which I'm just going to check with my fellow panelists. Have we said 5 p.m. post-match today? Is that what we said?
Yeah, that's what we're going for, yeah.
Yep. So everyone join us at 5 p.m. Post-match for the live reaction to hopefully a Rovers victory. And we will see you soon. So thank you all. Enjoy the game, and we will end it there.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.